Well, welcome back to another episode of the Gritty Hour. This week we have a very special guest, Mr. J.R. McCarthy, who is a published poet and also a teacher and a very old friend of mine. And I'm very happy to see you here, Mr. McCarthy.
One of my oldest and dearest friends.
Yes. So how are you doing?
I am the better for your asking. How are you, old
Good.
friend?
We
How
were
are you?
talking before about the challenges of teaching over Zoom, which I've had a conversation about that with some guests from the past podcasts. One was a music teacher, which is, I would think, exceptionally difficult. And one was a professor who teaches, among other things, public speaking.
Mhm.
And they both expounded on the challenges of teaching over Zoom during a pandemic, but that seems to be loosening up a little bit.
The most important thing right now is that everybody is acknowledging that we made the very, very best of a very bad situation, but it was still a very bad situation. There are so many intangibles and so many variables in an educational environment that there is no substitute. There is absolutely no substitute for presence. And we made the best of it. Some kids thrived, some kids didn't. But what we've learned, and what I hope we'll always remember, is that there is no substitute for presence. There is no substitute for being in the moment, in the place with the kids.
Right.
And that's what's been hardest about this for the kids, and perhaps hardest about this for all of the instructors across the board. I don't know how the people who teach little kids did it, and I don't know how the little kids. Every kid who, especially the youngest of them, who gave it a shot and fought the good fight, they all deserve nothing but respect. And the parents who rose to the occasion as well. With my kids, because they're adolescents and because they're special needs kids, especially they're kids with emotional and psychological issues, it was a very variable experience. Some of them thrived. Some of them performed better than they had ever performed because a lot of social anxiety had been taken off the table.
Right.
And ironically, and this was the one blessing that came out of the whole experience for me and for most of the my brother and sister wizards who I have spoken to. We call it now in education differentiated education. And the ironic thing is that even though we were distant from the kids, we were able to give them more attention and even more time, and deadlines became guidelines, and the day opened up, which was not the easiest thing in the world because we were all working much longer hours than we were accustomed to. But it was an opportunity to provide for their special needs in a way that we never anticipated. But it's still been disastrous because and I'm repeating myself, I'm sorry, there is no substitute for presence. And please God, we won't have to go through this for another 100 years.
No, let's hope so,
Yeah.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
But you've been vaccinated and I've been
Oh,
vaccinated.
you betcha. Yes.
It does give you a slight little bit of freedom. It seems like things are opening up pretty quickly, actually.
Great peace of mind. Well, I think that, I think we're all in agreement that things could not open up too quickly on many levels, or quickly enough for us is what I mean to say. But obviously a little prudence is, called for.
Yeah, well, I know it's good to be cautious, but it seems like some people are just tired of the whole thing,
It was a
regardless
dilemma.
of what their circumstances are with it,
It was a dilemma
Mm.
because there was no easy solution. There was no acceptable solution.
Well, are you teaching back in classroom now, or?
I would, like I was telling you before, what's been going on with us since July of last year, really, since summer school, because my students are special needs, they really run on a 12-month school year. So the school year really begins in July.
Uh-huh.
And everybody agreed from the beginning that the special needs kids should be back in the classroom as quickly as possible, with the caveat that if the parents were not comfortable with it, if the kids were not comfortable with it, they'd have the remote option. So we've been doing hybrid, which is a trip and a challenge.
Well, what does that mean specifically?
Well, basically, I'm in the classroom,
Uh-huh.
but I have some kids in the room with me and some kids coming in online.
Oh.
So, in addition to that, the two most important distinctions that we have finessed over the course of this pandemic are the hybrid education, where, as I mentioned, there are what we call live students and online students who are simultaneously attending class. And the other paradigm is synchronous learning and asynchronous learning, where in the beginning, when we were all feeling our way with, we were using Google, Zoom and Google, we all took a crash course on them. There was much to commend both programs, but we were using Google.
I thought Google owned Zoom. No?
I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you. But the Google Classroom and the Zoom Classroom are fundamentally similar, but there are some very specific differences. It's really 6 of one and half a dozen of the other, for the most part. I prefer Google, but Zoom is fine.
Well, the other two podcasters that are also teachers, or the other two people that I interviewed that are also teachers in previous podcasts, both mentioned, especially the one who teaches media and speech, public speaking, you miss the nuances when you're online of what well, in his case, he's sitting in front of his computer and there's 20 people on little boxes on his computer. You really don't know what you're saying is being received, you know, as opposed to having them right in front of you where you can, I guess, read the body language and see who's getting what you're saying and who's ducking what you're saying, you know.
I certainly believe that that's the case, and I think obviously teachers who, what we call in the special categories, the music teachers, the art teachers, God forbid the art teachers, who were teaching, painting and other types of fine art.
They all have to be Bob Ross.
Yeah, right. Yeah, very much so. But like imagine everybody's a Bob Ross. What you said is obviously very true in all forms of education. We were all kids in school, and we all learned how to pretend to be paying attention. One of the good things about Google is that you forget very quickly that you're in a classroom, so there is no artifice anymore. The kids aren't even pretending to pay attention. They're doing whatever they want.
That nuance you picked up over the
right. The nuance in the other direction. Which is part of the reason why the transition back into what we still call regular education is going to be more of a challenge than we realize, because everybody got accustomed very, very quickly to doing things to a certain extent on their own terms. But what you were saying about the experience of those teachers is more or less along the lines of what I mean when I say there is no substitute for presence. And if you're not, some people love to talk on the telephone. I never did, because it's not the same thing as conversation. It's not the same thing as picking up on body language and just being able to read the room. All of the intangibles that are at least as important to education as the content are up for grabs in this situation. But everybody had to do the best that they could. And to a certain extent, everybody did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, in addition to teaching, you're also a published writer.
Well, yes.
No, you had a book of.
I look forward to the tremendous extent to which I will be published when I'm dead. Well, I mean, I look forward to it, metaphorically speaking. I am the author, as you well know, of what was originally called Ambivalent, or Back in the Holy Bronx, what I now like to call Ambivalent Part 1, Back in the Holy Bronx.
Are you working on a part 2?
I have Part 2 in the can, as they say.
Wow.
And Part 2 is called Ambivalent Part 2, Ordinary Times. Now, you know very well, Thomas, that Ambivalent sold in the dozens. That Ambivalent was a literary tour de force.
It was. I
Yes.
especially liked being from the Bronx, as you are.
Yes.
Back in the Holy Bronx.
Back in the Holy Bronx is the poem for which I am known by the 30 or 40 people who know that I am a poet.
It only takes 30 or 40.
And I would hasten to add that at least 10 of those people are not related to me by blood or marriage or friendship.
For those who are listening or watching, you can go to YouTube and type in J.R. McCarthy, and your audio work was on CD Baby, and they did, I guess, a cache dump into YouTube. Or they got rid of their whatever they were doing there, and established a channel for you on YouTube for
I would be remiss if I didn't mention that as a poet, cache dump is just such a beautiful turn of phrase. I mean, you can't create a better
visual,
a better image of the dichotomy of language than cache and dump. But as you well know, Thomas, that's exactly what happened.
Well, one of the pieces in that book, audio and written, was epistemology, right?
Yes.
Which is the study of?
Well, epistemology is the study of the origin of knowledge. And the poem is called Epistemology 101. And it was, can I say half-assed on a podcast?
You can say the whole ass
okay,
if you want to.
Well, it was a half-assed but utterly sincere version or attempt to become the philosophy professor that I once hoped to become, and give my cosmology of the universe. And what could be more attractive to the listening audience?
And another one that comes to mind, because not only are we both from the Bronx, but we're both pretty much from Parkchester,
Yes.
where we did our formative years. Were in Parkchester. You did a piece called "The Quadrants," which was loosely based, I think, on Parkchester.
It was tightly based on Parkchester. And the all you folks in Parkchester out there, you know what we're talking about. Tommy and I met in the 7th grade when I was already 12 and he was about to turn 12. And Tommy had just moved into Parkchester, and Tommy lived in the South and I lived in the East. And when you meet somebody from Parkchester, the first question you ask them is, what quadrant did you live in?
Yes, it had the 4,
And
northeast, west, and south.
you're right. And so when I started forming what became what in my mind was the running theme of Ambivalent, which you actually convinced me to refer to as the quadrants, which was exactly what it was. Using the image of Parkchester as, again, a microcosm for the world, a microcosm for the community writ large, and each one of the quadrants, instead of north, south, east, and west, represented what are, for weal or woe, the driving forces of human existence. So we had money, sex, power, and skill. And that was, of course, before all the cosmology and all the good Catholic theology, which runs through everything I write, everything I think about, everything I dare to put down on paper. I'm rambling a little bit, but the bottom line is those of us who grew up in Parkchester, we know it was very much the world writ small. And for that reason, I found it to be a wonderful jumping off place.
Here's a word, quadrant-centric.
Yeah, quadrant-centric. I think you coined that word.
I did.
Very Joycean.
I think I just coined it right now.
Take that, Lewis Carroll. Take that, James Joyce.
Well,
take that, John Lennon.
For my money, and I like the entire book. I like the entire the recording of it as well.
Mm-hmm. AURAL. As well as ORAL.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah.
The piece de resistance for my money was back in the Holy Bronx.
Back in the Holy Bronx, may I say?
I'm gonna
just for posterity.
With your permission, sir, I'm gonna play it for the peeps.
I never miss an opportunity to hear my own voice.
Okay.
And then I'll tell you a little story.
Okay.
So that it would be down for posterity.
Very good.
So back in the Holy Bronx, baby.
This is a Parkchester-bound 6 train. The next and last stop is Parkchester, East 177th Street.
I am back in the Holy Bronx, where my father and his father rest in what peace there is. I am back in the Holy Bronx, carrying on in the name of shadows as they gather into legends. Noble antecedents, I am driving by your graves and wondering if you really listen to the things we say and really watch all the things we do. Am I thinking of you because you're thinking of me? Do you signify to me that heaven is no better than the Holy Bronx? So I should stay put, and Mother should too? Holy Bronx, you too have been ensnared by the encroaching anonymity of American cities. Your German delis implode into snapshot temples, and your beauty schools become vegetable maximarts. Your dimly lit bodegas sold beer to minors, but who sells minors to beer more quickly than the Videodrome or the Smoketeria? Holy Bronx, I swear you kept your children out of your saloons. They shivered over cheap wine in the pits of your arcane masonry until they came of age. Holy Bronx, I swear you sent your children off to worship on the many Sabbaths, but they sneaked off to the park to eat Kaiser rolls, and that's not your fault. Holy Bronx, you have more ravishing Latin girls than San Cipriano could raise from the sea foam on Orchard Beach. Holy Bronx, you have more glorious Irish girls in County Woodlawn than the White brothers can hypnotize with their famous blue eyes. Holy Bronx, you have more magnificent Italian girls in the curio shops of Arthur Avenue than the world may know. Holy Bronx, you have more fascinating black girls than you know yourself. Why are your poets too proud to shape sweet lyrics for their bangled ears? Holy Bronx, you rock with reckless wisdom. Holy Bronx, you damn cowards to invisibility. Holy Bronx, you breathe history, and your rooftops are littered with homers. Lilt of the Holy Bronx upon my tongue. Bounce of the Holy Bronx in my walk, all the way up Webster Avenue from now until Yonkers, amen. I am back in the Holy Bronx, driving badly in one of the many family cars I have squired to death. I am back in the Holy Bronx, crawling from Jerome to Gun Hill because my lady dreads I-95, or double parking on East Tremont because people in Nyack are jonesing for cannolis. Lou Gehrig and Sal Mineo, Latrice Joy and Virginia Clem, Billie Holiday and Big Pun. Would you give up the Elysian Fields to see dinosaurs lumbering up Fordham Road or spaceships docking at Ferry Point Park? Holy Bronx, you are giggling like a schoolgirl at the thugs of the third millennium, tripping over their clown pants, cramming baseball caps on top of bandanas on top of do-rags. Whatever happened to satin-back singing marauders? What happened to gangs with soul and soul with shape and shape showing up with her friends just in time to make you forget you were mad? Angry young posers, what does it take to embarrass you? Do the Knights of Columbus have to brandish their swords before you sit down and enjoy the show? Meanwhile, the ravishing Latin girls are dressed for Mardi Gras and teaching each other spectacular dances. Meanwhile, the glorious Irish girls have charmed a fin from each bagpiper, and this keg of beer is magically replenished. Meanwhile, the magnificent Italian girls have squeezed into one stretch limo for the mother of all bachelorette parties. Meanwhile, the fascinating black girls are rapping like warrior poets, and those who do not rhyme do listen closely. And under a hand-carved arch on Castle Hill Avenue, 2 homeless teenagers cradle their newborn son. Holy Bronx, you sway with righteous whimsy. Holy Bronx, you call all choirs to perfect pitch. Holy Bronx, you assume the proper posture and wait for whatever happens next. Lilt of the Holy Bronx upon my tongue. Bounce of the Holy Bronx in my walk. All the way up Webster Avenue from now until Yonkers. Amen. I am back in the Holy Bronx, and I don't know about you, Monsignor, but I still see the grandeur of the Grand Concourse. I am back in the Holy Bronx, and you swells of Riverdale can just stop pretending that you live in Westchester. I am back in the Holy Bronx, wishing that I could drop everything and venerate the Stonehenge gazebo off Allerton Avenue, or fathom the terracotta hieroglyphics of Parkchester, or leer like Leif Erikson as I leap from my dragon and claim City Island for Odin. Holy Bronx, you are what you are as the names of illustrious Jews baffle the denizens of Co-op City. Holy Bronx, you are what you are as Richard Wagner's opera all-stars are strangely commemorated in Throg's Neck. Holy Bronx, you are what you are as thoroughfares named for great French generals run past your hospitals and cemeteries. Holy Bronx, you are what you are as the Virgin Mary shows up at the grotto, looking much younger than the pictures suggest, and teaches a few words of Aramaic to black-clad little old ladies who were once ravishing Latin girls, looking out for each other and bringing their pay envelopes home unopened. Who were once glorious Irish girls, coming to the door in their grandmother's sweaters to say they had been grounded. Who were once magnificent Italian girls, loosing the very brothers they used to smack around against the neighborhood bums. Who were once fascinating black girls, utterly unself-conscious, hopeful even as the room filled up with empty promises. And the power of grace is precisely that they are what they were, and will always be so. Holy Bronx, you nod with all-knowing. Holy Bronx, you laugh with rueful recognition. Holy Bronx, you wish your Ponce de Leons well, and you put their house keys in the mailbox. Lilt of the Holy Bronx upon my tongue. Bounce of the Holy Bronx in my walk, all the way up Webster Avenue, from now until Yonkers. Amen.
And that was Back in the Holy Bronx by J.R. McCarthy, who is sitting right next to me here in the podcast room, we call it, in Millbrook, New York.
It's a beautiful room.
And that's my favorite piece of everything I've heard you write or heard you speak or write so far.
I appreciate that.
I must have listened to that I don't want to say song, but I must have listened to it 50 plus times.
The most important thing is that it comes through you and not from you. And the greatest sense that I had of that a real poem comes into the world through a poet and not from a poet. We harvest poetry. We don't write it.
Interesting.
I got the phrase from Allen Ginsberg, the Holy Bronx. It's from Hal.
Didn't Allen Ginsberg once smoke one of your cigarettes?
Oh, don't even get me started. Don't even get me started.
Well, I'd like to hear the story. But before that, you did say you had a story about Back in the Holy Bronx. I'd love to hear.
I had a girlfriend
Uh-huh.
who lived in Queens, and I had no car. You may recall at the time I had no license. And I was doing a lot of public transportation between Queens and the Bronx.
Right.
And arriving on the 40 bus over the Whitestone Bridge at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning.
How old were you at the time?
in my mid to late 20s.
Okay.
A late bloomer as a driver and as a lover. So, rather harrowing experience to take public transportation at 1 o'clock in the morning from Elmhurst, Queens. As it would happen, you come across the Whitestone Bridge into the Bronx, and you're passing St. Raymond Cemetery, where so many of my ancestors, so many of my beloved who have passed away are buried. And as soon as I got over the Whitestone Bridge, I would say in my mind, I'm back in the Holy Bronx.
Wow.
Where my father and his father and his father rest in what peace there is. And that's, you refine it and you play with it, and it's a joy to refine it and play with it, but it comes through you somehow. And that's how that one got started. And that was when, you may recall, I said to some dear friends, including yourself, fellas, I might actually have something here. And that was the time of Sirius Ink Press. And that was the time that was still the time of the Sleepers. So I was surrounded by you and other creative people.
We should interject that JR and I at one time were in a rock and roll band together.
At one time for a very, very long time, a once and future time. I mean, we never really quite broke up.
It was a short 20 years.
Yeah, you come back to your senses, and we will absolutely go back to it. But but yeah, so I said to Tommy, and I said to a number of other saints and angels we could name. I might actually have, what a humble man I am, Thomas.
Yes.
That I am loath to sing my own praises.
Modest to a fault.
Yes. And actually, I have the most robust ego, and do not mind at all sharing my thoughts and poems with the world. But not for nothing. I felt like I had something there. We had the similar experience with the Sleepers. We had the experience of the sum being greater than the parts, and all of a sudden you have this beautiful little miracle where you have some beautiful piece of work, beautiful piece of art, and no one of you can say where it came from except to say that something spiritual and beautiful happened here. But that, in a nutshell, in an enormous nutshell.
Well, I can't vouch for how it would play or be received by someone not from the Bronx or New York, maybe in general. But as someone from the Bronx, I think it's a masterpiece.
I appreciate that very much, and I always do appreciate, because once I got rolling, I did everything I could to make it a kind of an almanac of the Bronx. You heard the references that I make to various places, but it all begins and ends with Parkchester. It's about nostalgia.
Right.
And it is about the realization and the acknowledgement that nostalgia is a beautiful thing, but nostalgia is not a particularly reliable thing. Mm-hmm. The root of the word nostalgia is to cry and to weep. There is always an element of sorrow in our nostalgia, because we are talking about something that has, actually passed. And for better or for worse, one of the experiences that all of us who grew up in the Bronx had was not only the experience of seeing what we loved passing away very quickly, which in retrospect is an inevitable experience, but being surrounded by, because you and I are multi-generation Bronxites. My mom and dad grew up in the Bronx. I think your
No, they grew up in Manhattan, actually.
Yeah, but New Yorkers. But
I'm proud to say I'm the only one in my family born in the Bronx.
I was the first member of my family. I make a mistake. Both of my folks were born in the Bronx, and all of my brothers and my sister, we were all born. We were born while we were living in Parkchester.
Wasn't somebody in your family the Bronx DA?
My grandfather, my paternal grandfather, was an assistant DA in Bronx County for many, many years.
So your brother Andy McCarthy
and my brother Andy McCarthy, famous of song and legend, is retired from the federal prosecutor's office.
Yes, he's the one that tried the guy that bombed the World Trade
Sheikh
Center.
Omar Rahman, among others.
Yeah, good old Andy.
My brother Andy has a wonderful track record of protecting me from bad men. and
Well, in a
protecting me
sense-
from bullies, protecting me from people who would do me harm, and in all seriousness, he dedicated his legal career, his very successful career, to that pursuit.
Well, in a sense, he's protecting all of us, really.
Exactly, and that's the bottom line.
So again, for my money, that's a masterpiece. And my favorite piece of yours.
Which came through me, not from me.
But I
thank
know
you,
you're
Thomas.
also you haven't stopped writing since. So what?
No.
You have some more poetry in the pipeline?
Well, you were kind enough to bring up my grandfather and my brother,
Mm-hmm.
and in between my grandfather and my brother is my father,
Mm-hmm.
and I will share with you if you would like.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Let it rip. What's the name of the poem?
Dedicated to my father, with my father in mind. It's called "The Ace of Hearts is Proud of Me Tonight."
Hit it.
Okay. She touches me with clammy palms and smiles at me with crooked teeth. The Ace of Hearts is proud of me tonight. I wink, I blow a little kiss. No one can get me out of this. No one can show me where to step, but I am glad to be alive and I will not take back a word. She withers me with wary looks. She pardons me with martyr's smile. The Ace of Hearts is proud of me tonight. I left no ring around her life. Each one of us has left his best advice. I'll never get to read it all, but I am glad to be alive and I will not take back a word. She stood on summits made of glass and gnawed a fingernail for luck. The Ace of Hearts is proud of me tonight. I let her win. I said goodnight. And if you ask me what I think as you prepare to spring the trap, I'll say I'm glad to be alive and I will not take back a word. That's the Ace of Hearts.
Very
proud
nice.
of me tonight.
Very nice. And what was the underlying theme today?
Well, the underlying theme was, to be perfectly honest, the Ace of Hearts is I refer to my father that way.
The Ace of Hearts is proud of me tonight is the title.
That's the title of the poem.
Mm-hmm.
I would have, you know, my dad died when I was a kid.
Right.
I would have loved, as all of my brothers would have loved, as anybody would have loved, to have, obviously have him around longer than he was. But we were very, very blessed for reasons that we'll maybe talk about another time, to have him at all. And when I wrote that, and you know, it's been a while, as you know, since the last collection was published, and hopefully this one will be published soon.
Excuse me. I was going to say, I've known you for, I don't know, at least 45 years, maybe more.
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't known you long enough to have ever met your father.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. But I know you were very young when he passed away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Ace of Hearts is proud of me tonight is about my experiences with women when I was a younger man that I would have loved to have briefed. I would have loved to have discussed with him. I would have loved to have had his advice. You know, but I kind of did. You know,
Yes.
it was the same sort of thing. You know, my dad and my mom, for that matter. You know, I mean, I always knew what kind of people they wanted me to be, and happily they wanted me to be the kind of people that they were. So, you know, that was that.
Well, you have a good family, and I'm sure your father was proud of all you and all your brothers and sisters.
He would be. I know he would be.
Brother and sister.
Yes,
Brothers
my
and sister.
my lovely sister and my noble brothers. Yes, it's 6 of us
very good.
all together.
And would that be part of the aforementioned ambivalent part 2?
Yeah, that's going to be one of the poems that will be published with Ordinary Time.
Do you have like an online site where people can visit some and read some of your poetry?
Right now, I am at Obscure American Poet at WordPress.com. Obscure American Poet is one word. I am the Obscure American Poet, J.R. McCarthy. And yes, again, it is one word. Obscure American Poet at WordPress.com. And I'm hoping that this will be the summer when I get it all together and get myself
we'll put a
out
link
there.
to that site below this podcast.
I'd be grateful, and I
people
would
can,
put a candle in the window. Every year since 9/11, on Facebook, I have published a poem written about 9/11.
Is it called Fragile Little Time?
Well, Fragile Little Time I have right here, and Fragile Little Time will be in the new publication as well. But Fragile Little Time is something I post as a memorial to our friends in heaven. Unfortunately, as we lose them sometimes.
I remember the
on
first
those
time I read it
anniversaries.
was soon after your wife Trish's father passed away.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime we lose somebody we love, I put it out there.
It's a very emotional poem to read.
Well, do you think we could bear it?
If you want to read it, or
I mean,
you have it committed to memory, or
Well, I'm going to see if I have it committed to memory.
yeah, I'd love to hear it.
Okay. Well,
I'm in the mood for it
okay.
now.
So, Fragile Little Time.
Let me get me tissue.
Okay. Well, use your shirt sleeve. It's just you and me here.
No, go ahead.
Okay. I'll try to make it a little less mellifluous because I know you get very emotional. Okay. So this is Fragile Little Time. Anytime somebody you love goes to heaven. Okay, think about this. Okay, we will leave this place of selfish tears and search for your monument wherever it chooses to bloom. Unnecessary to erect a proper lifeless headstone when a splendid mighty inkling of forever is already swaying, already beloved in some delightful place not far from here. Some fine new world where appreciation is unleavened by memory, where you are always as strong, healthy, and beautiful as on the fairest day of the fragile little time when we were blessed to love you.
Very nice.
I love that you see it more and more often nowadays that when people lose a loved one, they plant a tree. They put something into the ground other than a stone to commemorate that person. That's a very hopeful thing to do. That's a very positive association with the perpetuity and the
Fragility.
both the fragility and the perpetuity, the fragility and the resilience of eternity. How does that grab you?
Sounds good.
Right.
It's still epistemology 101. I learned a lot from you over the years.
Well, I tried, Tommy. I tried. Does anybody call you Tommy? I don't ever call you Tommy to your face, but for some reason right now I'm calling you Tommy over and over again. I hope you don't mind.
No.
Tommy, can you hear me?
No, when you refer to me, you refer to me as Thomas.
Yes.
Tommy's better than Thomas.
Yes.
Yeah.
But Tom is best.
Yeah.
And the Big McGee,
McGee,
that's a story for
That's
another time.
that's my stage.
Yeah,
name.
we'll tell sleeper stories one time. What do you think?
Yes, maybe I'd love to have you
Sometime down
back,
the road.
maybe in person or over Zoom, and talk about nothing but the band or music.
I would dig that.
I think we had
I
some
would dig
splendid
that.
moments.
I know two people who would enjoy that very much, and that's you and me. And as far as the rest of you Philistines are concerned, well, no, you're always welcome.
Yes, but I distracted you from, you were going to read something that you have new.
Well,
I think I distracted you by requesting the Fragile Little
no,
Time.
not brand new. When we were working with Sirius Inc. and we were trying to get things out there.
Serious Ink Press.
Sirius Inc. Press. Tom McGee has been my champion and advocate throughout my entire literary career. I'm not trying to be funny. And he's still, as you can see, giving me a platform. I also have an association, as you know, with, it's been a while, unfortunately, but the Irish Echo was kind enough to publish some of my essays
Yes, I used to read you often in there.
sundry Irish poets and writers. But also, when they commemorated the 10th anniversary of 9/11, they published a couple of my poems.
Very good.
And
Larry Kirwan, I think, was writing for that as well.
mm-hmm.
The guy from Black 47.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I've never had the honor of meeting him. I've only seen him for a distance in the time of Black 47.
Well, I've met him.
Funky Cayley.
I
right?
met him in between sets of the Black 47.
I envy you that. I remember that. I remember that you had that connection.
Yeah.
So, when you go to Obscure American Artists, if you go to Obscure American Artists, you'll see that
Obscure American poet.
I beg your pardon. Excuse me. It's very confusing this late at night. Obscure American Poet at WordPress.com. There's a section of poems that I have written, or there will be a section very shortly of poems that I have written over the years commemorating the anniversary of 9/11.
Right.
And one of them called, may I? One of them?
Yes.
Yeah.
Please do.
And maybe this is the last one I will afflict upon you.
That's quite all right. Let it rip.
So this one is called 9/11, 9:11. Okay, Manhattan almost made me swoon for love the only time I saw her from the sky. That was many years before the day the towers fell. I'll live another age, and then I'll rise above her one more time. I'll recognize the slender beams of light that radiate from Gotham's foremost wound. Manhattan gives the world one more surprise. 2 towers fall, 3,000 towers rise. 2 towers fall, 3,000 towers rise. There's each of you who ran to save a life. There's each of you who knelt to say goodbye. 2 towers fall, 3,000 towers rise. The searchers and the mourners find the point where mysteries of love and loss entwine. 2 towers fall, 3,000 towers rise. No wisdom and no words to say my piece, but I know what I know. This holy ground withstands the infernal heat, and light abides. 2 towers fall, 3,000 towers rise.
Very nice. Very nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you for giving me that time. That
Oh,
opportunity,
absolutely.
Tom, as
I
always.
do love your written work, and you've written some short stories as well, which I've enjoyed over the years.
I am hoping that by the end of this summer, which will be the summer of some love, the summer of some love,
The summer of,
summer of 2021,
Uh-huh.
the summer of shaking the cobwebs out.
Well, in '69 they went topless. Maybe this year we'll go maskless. Who knows?
Well, maskless would be like the ultimate topless, you know. At this particular point, you know, maskless would suffice for topless. I just want to see your face.
Yeah.
Just show me your face.
Just show me your face.
So I'm hoping I have the short stories are you know, that they come slowly, but I have 5 I like to call them novellas, and they're called 5 Tales of Parental Intervention, which I would like to try to afflict upon the world come September. Just a little teaser.
Oh, good.
You know, I do tend to ramble, so I'll stop.
So, what did I call it before? The Cache Dump that CD Baby did in YouTube.
Cache dump, baby.
I'm actually going to put a link to that YouTube channel with your permission so people can hear. I think all of the ambivalent that you did, you know, vocal recordings of.
Ambivalent in its entirety, thanks to you and thanks to our pal Dan Walsh.
Dan Walsh,
That was a
the,
wonderful experience that we had.
engineer, yeah.
Yes. Mhm.
Yeah, and but I think the entire book is.
It's out there. It's,
On
well, it
YouTube.
should be, because it was all on CD Baby. We did, as you remember, recordings of each one of the tracks.
There's a way to reclaim that for yourself, lad, but
We will.
we'll figure it out.
The night is young, Tom.
Maybe we'll figure it out between now and the time.
The
this
night is
podcast
young.
airs.
Yes. Mhm.
But I appreciate you coming up to Millbrook, Mr. McCarthy.
It is always a pleasure to come up to Millbrook. And the
And,
more often I come, the more reason I have to get here. Millbrook, New York. Come for Tom McGeady, stay for the ambiance. That's what I impart upon to all of you.
Well, you're a good man, and
As are you.
and a very good friend,
And as are you. And my champion and my advocate, as well as
I
my
certainly
friend.
enjoy your previous work, and I'm looking forward to the new stuff you got coming out.
Well, you know you'll be the first one I tell.
All right.
The first one of millions.
And like I said before, I'd love to have you back for another podcast, maybe over Zoom, or better yet, in person.
I'd love to come back. I'd be more lucid, I promise.
Maybe actually towards the end of the summer when you have these new works coming out.
Sounds good to
Might
me.
be good timing.
I'd be honored, Thomas. I'd
All
be
right.
honored.
Well, thank you, JR.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Tom.
it.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Okay.